Hey folks. As you know, because I mention it in basically every video, everything in my life is about to change. I'm getting married, I'm moving, we're about to start a family. I have a lot of anxiety about all of this, so I've been thinking for a while about doing a video on preparing for and coping with huge life changes. I've had big shifts in my life that I've had to plan for before, although not quite as large in magnitude as those that are upcoming, switching jobs, moving from one city to another, things like that. Truthfully, these transitions used to excite me so much that I didn't feel a tremendous burden to plan for them in order to alleviate anxiety. The folly of youth, right? But as I've gotten older and have experienced some stress resulting from the woeful lack of planning in my early and mid 20s before large life changes, I've learned a thing or two about doing front end work to reduce the burden of sorting this out later while I'm also adjusting to new elements of my life. I assume that most people are similar to me in that they're creatures of habit. I like my little routines, going to familiar spots, taking the same routes. It comforts me, reassures me that there is stability in a chaotic world. I've also noticed that I value these comforts more as I get older. I no longer experience a wave of excitement about upcoming changes that is stronger than my desire to seek stability. Right after a big life shift, there is an inevitable, almost certainly uncomfortable, and sometimes very painful adjustment period. Not all changes are expected, so this can't always be mitigated, but when possible, I've learned over the years that you can work in a preparation period before the adjustment period that really does help ease the transition. I used to just dive into these transition periods with little or no preparation. I would procrastinate and not deal with any of the details of the upcoming event just because thinking about it stressed me out. Then the logistics of the change would compound the natural emotional reactions that always occur during these phases and would absolutely crush me. I just couldn't deal with the stress, and then my life would become unmanageable. I'm very intolerant to turbulence in my life these days, so after crashing and burning spectacularly during a few of these large self-imposed life changes, I've learned how essential it is to the potential success of any huge life shift or decision to have an actionable plan. This go where the wind takes me bullshit is hippie nonsense. Now I do this primarily through list making. I like to solve all problems this way, although it is a bit systematic. Nonetheless, it's worked for me for my entire adulthood now. I break down even the largest problems into more manageable parts. I literally write it out. The problem or the upcoming transition, what the likely outcomes will be, potential derailments of my action plan, and the most important part, what can I do ahead of this transition to ease me into it and to lessen my future workload? List making really has been a powerful tool in managing my life and my anxiety. I have long-term lists, short-term lists, random lists, folders of lists. But every time I get something done, I cross it off and it gives me a feeling of accomplishment and control that reassures me and incrementally takes away some of that fear. Let's take a move, for example. Of course, there are practical items, making lists of things that need to be done, packing, renting out my apartment, steps for buying a new house. Then I break these steps down into smaller, more actionable steps, first into weekly categories, then I parse them out into things that I can do daily. This is mostly intuitive, but I will say that a problem I've had with my list making has been developing unrealistic expectations for what I can accomplish in a given period of time. If I load my daily and weekly schedules up and fail to do something every day and have it roll over, by the end of the week or the month, there is a mile-long list and it makes me feel overwhelmed and like I've accomplished nothing. When I implemented this strategy, I erred on the side of putting too much on my plate each day. I've learned that this is a mistake and that it's better to just focus on a few things that you know you can get done. At the end of every day, especially if you've been working the entire day, you want to feel like you've accomplished something, not like you're drowning in an insurmountable amount of work. That will have a demotivational effect. Another strategy related to this that I use if I'm especially concerned about an upcoming change or a decision I've made is that I write down the things that could potentially go wrong and possible solutions. My upcoming move, for example, is worrying me because I've never lived in a small town before, and I'm concerned I won't like it and that I won't be so near my family. So I've written down that we can always move back, we can have monthly family events so we still see each other a lot. As I think of solutions when I'm worrying about these things, I can just jot them down, and when I feel myself ruminating, I refer to this list. It's totally a psychological trick, but when I write things down, I feel like I'm pulling them out of my brain and putting them somewhere that I can see. And I know it makes me sound crazy, but it's been very effective for me. This is really cliche, and I sort of hate that it's worked wonders in my life, but it has. This concept of faking it till you make it. Whenever I move to a new city, I make myself stay in the city, basically no matter what, for at least 3 years. During this time, I really do try to put down roots and engage with the community, and this works for most major life changes. It forces you to accept your circumstances, and even if you aren't totally convinced yourself, to go through the motions until it becomes natural. Then there's a real opportunity for growth. My mom always tells me when I'm going through a rough patch, just keep swimming, Rebecca. Another cliche, and I know it sounds stupid, but this has also really helped me. This idea that if you just get through this transition or this pain, you will come out on the other side. You just have to get through it, even if you aren't dealing with things perfectly or even very well. It's a way of reminding myself that this is temporary and even the most difficult times will end eventually. You may look back on the most difficult periods of your life and think, how did I possibly get through that? And that's just it. It's just about getting through. I think it was Robert Frost that said, the best way out is always through. There will be a new normal after this if you can just hang on and maintain until the storm has passed. Just keep taking the next step and making decisions. I remember when I was a child having major anxiety about knowing nothing of certain topics. Not understanding credit cards or financial transactions really worried me for some reason. I remember lying awake at night worrying about this. But what I didn't realize then was that going through stages of your life prepares you for subsequent stages. I'm scared that I won't know what to do when I'm a mom. But knowing what I know now, I feel confident that I'll be able to rise to the challenge using what I've learned up to this point. We just have to keep taking the next step. And perhaps the most important thing that I've learned through my many failures in life is to be flexible. Things never go exactly as you plan. I know this is a video devoted to the benefits of planning, but it is really frustrating to put in all of this work and have an expectation that things will go a certain way. Then they don't, and I think we've all experienced this. I've learned that even though I may be meticulously planning for an event, to try to avoid allowing this to set up even reasonable expectations for how things will go. Even if things are successful, if you have inflexible expectations, you will almost certainly be disappointed. So even though we generally grow more rigid as we get older, we have to work to be tolerant of things not going as planned. If you've ever dealt with a bride that wants her wedding to be perfect, you know what I mean. She is going to have a shitty day even if the smallest thing diverges from her vision of perfection. She really should just relax, accept that things aren't going to be perfect no matter what, and enjoy her wedding anyway. Such is life. My move might be a big disaster, irrespective of my planning, but I'll do my best to try to find humor in the things that pop up and just enjoy this time in my life before kids. Even though this video was filled with trite idioms, I hope it helped someone out there. I'm somewhat lazy and have pretty bad anxiety, so I don't know that your average person really needs to do this much preparation, but I found it so helpful to stay on top of my action items related to upcoming changes because it prevents me from getting bogged down and overwhelmed. Let me know in the comment section what you do or have done to prepare for upcoming life events. I'd love to hear what has worked and what hasn't. Thanks, folks, and I'll see you soon. Bye.